Coco Gauff snaps back, and suddenly, locker room drama explodes on camera. A final that should have ended with celebration turned into a storm of words, reactions, and raw emotions. Because one comment, one sentence, turned respect into tension, victory into controversy, and silence into fire. Nobody expected Coco to respond the way she did, and yet she had every reason to. Before the drama ever reached cameras, pressure was already building behind the scenes. Coco Gauff arrived in Paris wearing the weight of expectation like armor. Clay had never been her strongest surface, but in 2025, she came to Roland Garros different, sharper, calmer, and determined. Match after match, she didn't just win, she controlled, dismantled, and outlasted. The tennis world felt a shift. For the first time since her U.S. Open triumph, she wasn't the underdog. She was the problem everyone else had to solve. And on the other side, Aryna Sabalenka, world #1, Grand Slam champion, and the emotional volcano of women's tennis. Her game? Explosive. Her personality? Unfiltered. Her emotions? Impossible to hide. And in Paris, everyone could see she was fighting more than opponents. She was fighting herself. Tiny doubts, heavy pressure, and the shadow of a season that demanded perfection. When Gauff and Sabalenka walked onto court Philippe Chatrier for the final, the storylines were already boiling. Youth versus power, poise versus fire, a rising queen versus the reigning one. But nobody knew the real explosion would happen after the match, not during it. As the match unfolded, Sabalenka unraveled under her own power. Nearly 70 unforced errors, a number so high it would haunt any player, came off her racket like a curse she couldn't break. Gauff? She stayed composed. She didn't overpower Sabalenka. She outlasted the storm until the wind burned itself out. When the final ball sailed long, Gauff dropped her racket, covering her face as the crowd roared. But just seconds later, cameras caught something unusual. Sabalenka's handshake was quick, tight, almost cold. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes carried frustration, disappointment, and something deeper, something personal. Still, everyone thought the story ended there. A match, a trophy, a celebration. But the real match, the real drama, was about to start. Because in the press room, Sabalenka didn't hold back. And in the locker room, Coco Gauff heard exactly what the world heard, a comment that felt like a slap. A comment that would push her to snap back publicly, unapologetically, and with the full weight of a champion defending her worth. And that's when the locker room drama truly began. It happened fast, too fast. Sabalenka walked into her press conference looking visibly shaken, shoulders tense, eyes unfocused, lips pressed tight. Anyone could tell the loss hurt, but nobody expected what she said next. When the reporter asked whether Gauff's level surprised her, Sabalenka didn't hesitate. She didn't even soften the blow. She said she won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes. The room froze. It wasn't an insult, but it was close enough to feel like one, especially after a Grand Slam final, especially when the world #1 had just been outplayed by a younger rival rising fast. Reporters shifted in their seats. The tension was instant. Everyone knew the headline was writing itself. And Gauff? She was watching the footage in the locker room with her team. Cameras caught a brief shot. Just a glimpse, but enough. The moment the words appeared on the screen, her expression changed. She went from relaxed champion to stunned competitor in seconds. Her eyebrows lifted, her jaw tightened. That was the first spark. Inside the locker room, whispers rose. Other players, staff members, even journalists passing through reacted as the clip replayed. Some shrugged, saying Sabalenka was emotional and honest, nothing new. Others were shocked. A few muttered that Sabalenka had gone too far. But Coco's reaction spoke the loudest. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't laugh. She didn't ignore it. She sat upright, took a breath, and said under her breath, loud enough for cameras nearby to capture the intensity, "So that's how we're doing this." It was subtle, but it was the moment the fire caught. Because when Coco Gauff stepped into her own press conference minutes later, she didn't pretend she hadn't heard it, and she didn't hold back. Gauff was calm, respectful, but firm enough to make the entire room lean forward. She said she wasn't surprised by Sabalenka's frustration, but she made something very clear. She earned that trophy. She deserved her moment, and she wasn't going to let anyone rewrite the story of her win. Her exact tone? Controlled. Her message? Sharp. Her presence? Unshakable. And just like that, the drama moved from the match court to the microphones to the world, because the internet saw everything, and it exploded. If the match lit the spark, if Sabalenka's words lit the flame, then social media turned it into a wildfire. Clips flooded timelines within minutes. Headlines read like alarm bells. Sabalenka downplays Gauff win. Locker room tension spills over. Gauff responds, not having it. Fans split instantly. Team Sabalenka argued she was honest, emotional, and simply pointing out what everyone saw. She made too many errors to win. She said she wasn't disrespecting Gauff, she was admitting her own collapse. Team Gauff saw it differently. To them, Sabalenka's words weren't self-critical, they were dismissive, a way to avoid giving credit, a way to protect her pride after losing on the biggest stage. Players chimed in. Some posted cryptic emojis. Others liked tweets that clearly suggested their stance. A few former champions commented on TV panels, calling Sabalenka's comments messy and unnecessary. Meanwhile, Sabalenka tried to put out the fire. Within hours, she posted an apology, carefully worded, emotional, almost shaky in tone. She admitted her emotions got the better of her. She said she regretted how the comments sounded. She insisted that Gauff fully deserved the win. She even mentioned sending Coco a personal letter. For a moment, it felt like the fire might calm. But Coco hadn't spoken yet, not about the apology, and the internet was waiting. When Coco finally addressed Sabalenka's clarifications the next day, she didn't escalate, but she didn't downplay either. She said she appreciated the apology, but she also reminded everyone that words matter, especially from top players, especially after major finals. It wasn't anger. It was accountability. It was quiet strength that cut deeper than shouting ever could. And that response triggered something even bigger, because now the storyline wasn't just Sabalenka versus Gauff. It was respect. It was leadership. It was what champions owe each other and the sport. And as the narrative shifted, the backlash turned sharp. Sabalenka's apology should have ended the controversy. Instead, it created a second wave. Critics questioned the timing. Why did the apology take hours? Was it genuine or pressure from PR teams? Why did she mention a personal letter, something private, publicly? The tennis world has seen this pattern before. A player speaks emotionally, realizes the backlash, then retreats into apology mode. But Sabalenka isn't known for retreating. She's known for being raw, direct, and occasionally explosive. So when she softened her stance, fans didn't believe it. Some said she was only apologizing because the clip was going viral. Others claimed she was trying to protect her #1 image. A few felt bad for her, saying people were reading too deeply into a moment of frustration. Meanwhile, the locker room atmosphere grew thick. Players who had seen the match, heard the press conferences, and witnessed years of rivalry dynamics whispered about how personal it seemed. Some felt Sabalenka crossed a line. Others felt Coco's response was controlled but icy. The aftermath was messy. emotionally, professionally, socially. But the biggest fallout wasn't online. It was psychological. Sabalenka entered her next interviews visibly drained, her voice softer, her body language tense. She said she hated how she handled the moment, that she respected Coco, that she didn't want this to define her. But in sports, moments choose you. You don't choose them. Gauff, meanwhile, handled the storm with a calm that surprised even her critics. She didn't drag Sabalenka. She didn't clap back online. She didn't fuel drama. Instead, she stood tall, letting the world see she wasn't just a champion, but she was a leader, a standard, someone who demanded respect simply by the way she carried herself. And that calm strength made the backlash towards Sabalenka even sharper. This wasn't just a small incident. It was a turning point, a moment that exposed the emotional fault lines between two champions, a moment that showed how thin the line is between honesty and disrespect, a moment that left both women scarred in different ways. In the days that followed, both players tried to move on, but the tension lingered like smoke after a fire. Sabalenka insisted she meant no harm, that she respected Gauff deeply, that her comment was aimed at herself, not Coco. And there was truth in that. Sabalenka had always been brutally honest about her performance, sometimes to a fault. She analyzed her matches with a rawness that made her vulnerable and sometimes misunderstood. But intention doesn't erase impact. Gauff understood that. And when reporters pushed her again about the apology, she answered with maturity beyond her age. She said she accepted it. She said she believes Sabalenka was emotional, but she also said something far more because she wasn't just talking about Sabalenka. She was talking about herself, too. About the mental growth that allowed her to rise above drama. About the emotional intelligence she fought hard to build. About how champions should protect the sport, even when disappointed. Privately, some insiders claimed the relationship between the two cooled further. Not hostility, just distance. Respect, but guarded. Professional, but colder than before. Publicly, both moved on. But the truth remained. That moment changed their rivalry. It added an edge, a wound, a layer of unspoken tension. And the audience? They felt it too. Fans began anticipating their next match, not just for tennis, but for emotion, for the unspoken, for the unresolved. Because the story didn't end in Paris. It simply paused. And everyone knew the next chapter, whenever it happened, would be explosive. When the dust settled, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a controversy. It was a reveal of how champions think, a reveal of how they crack, a reveal of how they fight to protect their pride, their legacy, their truth. For Coco Gauff, this moment strengthened her image. She didn't just win a Grand Slam, she won respect. She showed calm in chaos, clarity in conflict, and maturity in the face of subtle disrespect. Her response wasn't dramatic, it was powerful. For Aryna Sabalenka, this became a lesson she never intended to teach, a reminder that words are sharp, that frustration has consequences, that honesty without control becomes collateral damage. And yet, it also reminded fans why they love her. She is human, emotional, imperfect, real. The locker room whispers, the press room tension, the online wildfire, all of it became part of a story bigger than a match. A story about ego, a story about respect, a story about pressure, a story about two champions moving through the same storm in completely different ways. And in the end, one question remains, a question only the court can answer. Was this just a rivalry flare-up, or the beginning of a new era in women's tennis? The truth is simple. Moments like this don't fade. They shape careers, rivalries, and legacies. Coco Gauff walked out stronger. Aryna Sabalenka walked out changed. And the next time they meet, the world won't just watch the match. They'll watch the tension. If you want more deep dive tennis drama like this, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and join us as we break down the rivalries shaping the future of the sport.